Okay. Let me
Professor,
see.
just to double check, tonight is just the only thing that's due for the first group is essentially the presentations, right?
Yep,
The papers aren't due till April 8th.
that's right. So your presentation itself, you don't even need to, you don't need to turn it in until April the 8th.
Oh,
It's just
okay.
your oral presentation is due today.
Okay. Sounds
Yeah,
good.
yeah, yeah. Hmm.
If you are open to it, I'd like to volunteer to go first just to get it out of the way.
Perfect, Andrew. Thank you. So let me see, what number are you?
I am 24.
Thank you. Okay. I
I
was gonna
could
ask
go
for
second.
head count. Who wanted to do second?
I could do second,
Okay,
Professor.
I'll do
Okay,
third.
who's that? Yeah, who's that? Who number?
Jose Martinez.
Yeah,
It's 22.
22
Mm-hmm.
second and third. What number?
Third, Giancarlo.
Uh,
Uh,
Giancarlo is
I'm
here.
number 20, row
20.
20.
Okay, okay,
Yeah,
here.
thank you.
Okay. Anybody else volunteer?
Can I go fourth? I'm number
Yes.
11.
Perfect. Mm-hmm.
I'll go after Anthony,
Okay.
number 5.
Number 5. Perfect. Mm-hmm.
Professor, or what we're gonna, I kind of joined a little, not so early. Are we just gonna be doing the presentations today?
Yeah, just the presentation. The deliverable, everything is due April, April 8th. So today will be easy. We just sit back and listen, to teammate. They're going to be presenting their presentation, the audit. Okay. What about the remaining? If not, I'm going to just randomly assign now. So 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Okay. So what do you guys think about the guest speakers so far? Was it was it surprising to you guys listening to like a CIO, a CISO, chief audit executive, and the head of EBCO of business continuity? They have slightly different perspective, right?
Yes, absolutely. I was actually anticipating they'd be a bit more robotic, but they all seem pretty down to earth and willing to help.
Good, 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 good. I'm glad to hear that. And I think that their view about AI, although it's slightly different, but they all kind of share something similar. We have to, learn and be on top of it, and we have to embrace it, leveraging it. So I think at the end of the day, AI will help analyze the data, but somebody has still have to reveal the result, right? So the human being is just like our skill set need to look at it slightly different with the AI technology. Okay. Okay. Any question before we start the presentation? So next week there's no class. The following week is the audit presentation again, and then after that there's no class, spring break. And then on April the 8th, when you guys submit your individual audit presentation deliverable, we will also take that opportunity to review the exam questions for the student who will be taking their comprehensive exam on May 1st. Okay, so we're gonna go through the multiple questions from the fundamental of IT auditing, so it will help them when they take the comprehensive exam. Okay. Any questions? Okay. If there's no other questions, Andrew, it's all yours. Let me make you a presenter, or maybe you're already a presenter. Let me see. Andrew, go for it.
Okay, give me one sec.
Oh, let me stop sharing.
Sure.
Somebody chat. Let me see who. Um. Okay.
Alrighty, this is actually pre-recorded, so please let me know if the audio doesn't sound right, but I'm hoping it does sound right. All right, you guys ready?
Yes, and hold on, I think he's got stuck at work, so he need to move to next week's. Okay. Go for it.
So I intentionally made this only 8 minutes, so I'm hoping it's not too long. My name is Andrew Pasqua. I audited how well Cal Poly Pomona governs the use of generative AI. I had one criteria, and that was the Cal Poly Pomona Guidelines for Generative Artificial Intelligence, which was published on March 7, 2025. As my findings will show, the guidelines need work. Of the 6 domains, I have 18 controls. My overall rating for this document is needs improvement. And here's how I got there. Cal Poly Pomona is one of 23 Cal State University campuses. The system serves roughly 471,000 students and 63,000 faculty and staff. Cal Poly Pomona alone has about 27,000 students and roughly around 2,600 employees. The university handles a lot of sensitive data. That could be staff and student records, health information, and payment data. In this context, weak AI governance means real exposure, regulatory violations, financial penalties, and reputational damage. These aren't hypothetical risks, they're real threats. To help mitigate these threats, Cal Poly Pomona published its formal Gen AI policy in the first quarter of 2025. It's 6 pages long and available on Bronco Direct. My objective in this report was to evaluate Cal Poly's governance, compliance practices, and risk management controls around Gen AI. I asked, what's working in this current revision? What isn't? And lastly, are there gaps that are most likely to cause problems for the university? I covered all 6 domains, and there were 3 controls each, and 3 test questions per control. For each control I asked, is the control addressed in a policy? Is the language mandatory or advisory? Is there evidence the control has been implemented? My methodology was policy inspection, only that. No system access, no interviews, no log reviews. Everything came from the published CPP guidelines content alone. The results. 18 controls were tested, 7 passed while 11 did not. However, there were no high severity findings, 8 were medium, 3 were low. The heat map in the slide tells the story. Most exceptions found land in either medium likelihood or medium impact. The good news is that none are critical on their own, but if left unaddressed, they will compound and they'll add up to something bigger. As a result, my overall rating is Cal Poly Pomona's AI guidance guidelines needs improvement. They have a good policy framework, but this revision of the guidelines lacks the proper infrastructure to enforce it. They need a second revision with some key tweaks and changes, which I'll cover in my recommendation. Slide 5, Domains 1 and 2. Domain 1, Governance and Management. There was one exception. Guideline 5D requires a designated campus administrator for Gen AI oversight. The requirement is in the policy, the role exists on paper, but the named person does not. Controls 1.2 and 1.3 pass. The definitions and scope are covered. Domain 2, Data Integrity. 2 exceptions, both low severity. Guideline 5E calls for diverse, inclusive training data, but there is no standard defining what that looks like in practice. Guidelines 5B and 5F require data traceability. That is, knowing where your inputs come from and where outputs go, but nothing confirms it's happening. Control 2.1 pass, data classification is covered. Domain 3, Security and Access Control. 2 medium exceptions. ATI and IT security reviews are recommended in the policy but not required. That means a tool can be deployed with no security review and remain technically within policy. That can be a liability. Finding 3.3, no access control requirements are defined for Gen AI tools. No provisioning process, no deprovisioning requirement. If someone leaves the university, there's nothing in the policy that requires their access to be revoked. Control 3.2 passed. Data isolation for ChatGPT and Copilot via Canvas SSO is addressed. That's a plus. Domain 4, Ethics and Bias Mitigation. 2 medium exceptions. Guideline 7 says training should be provided, however, there is no mandatory program, defined content, or tracking. Guideline 9 says output should be reviewed before use, but there is no process, defined owner, or documentation standard. There is no enforcement measure for Guideline 9. Control 4.1 pass. The policy does address bias and fairness at a high level. Domain 5, Compliance. 2 controls passed. Data privacy and IP protections are addressed. 1 exception. Guidelines 10 and 11 name who to report to, the CISO, ELR, faculty affairs, and the dean of students, but there's no mechanism, contact information, or escalation steps. Knowing where to go isn't the same as knowing how to get there. Domain 6, performance monitoring. 3 exceptions. The campus administrator is assigned responsibility for oversight of accuracy and reliability, but the policy gives them nothing to work with. There's 0 metrics, no review schedule, or a retraining protocol. Guideline 5G requires transparent, understandable models and never defines what transparency means. Guidelines 6 and 8 use advisory language throughout. No division is actually required to report on Gen AI usage or efficiency. The underlying pattern, or the underlying problem, all 11 exceptions share the same root cause, and that is Cal Poly Pomona wrote a policy, but they didn't build a program around it. I don't think this is bad intent. It just means a revision is merited. Requirements were written into the policy and never translated into actual processes, ownership, or enforcement. The biggest issue is language. Should, may, and recommended show up throughout the entire guidance policy, where must or shall belong. Those current words and policies aren't requirements, they're suggestions. You can ignore a suggestion and stay within policy, and that is a gap. The fix isn't a new policy, it's making the existing ones enforceable. I have 8 key recommendations. 1, name the campus administrator for Gen AI oversight. Publish it. Findings 1.1, 6.1, 6.2, and 6.3 have no accountable owner until that changes. Number 2, audit the policy language. Replace the should, may, and recommended with must or shall in every control. Attach the name owner to each one. Number 3, make Gen AI training mandatory. Track it in Cal Poly Pomona's learning management system. There shouldn't be any AI access until it's done. Number 4, require ATI IT security reviews before any tool goes live. Keep a published approved tool inventory as evidence of what's been reviewed. Number 5, document access control requirements for Gen AI tools. Align them with existing Cal Poly Pomona IAM policies. If SSO through Canvas is the de facto control, the policy should say so. Number 6, create a training data quality standard. Build a data input-output registry. Document what's going in and where the output ends up. Number 7, publish a reporting guide. Make sure to include actual contact information. Also publish escalation steps for each channel, for the CISO, for the ELR, for faculty affairs, and the dean of students. And number 8, define performance metrics, a review schedule, and a retraining protocol. Assign all of it explicitly to the administrator role. Oversight without defined criteria isn't oversight. In conclusion, this audit had 18 controls. There were 11 exceptions, but 0 of high severity. Thusly, the overall rating is needs improvement. Cal Poly Pomona is on the right track. No horse pun intended. The framework is there. The work now is turning that intent into something enforceable. Thank you.
Oh, wow, I like it. It's really good. It's very detailed, and I think the format. So this is really good, and you provided very concrete recommendations, something that they can fix right away. So thank you, Andrew. And maybe this is something that we should, I don't know if you mind for us to share your presentation with the CISO. I don't know if you know Carol Gonzalez. She is the CISO for Cal Poly Pomona. She also graduated from this program many years ago, along with me. She's actually my classmate. So I think this is going to be extremely helpful for her to hear that. So I don't know if you mind sending her the recorded presentation, or you upload in Canvas, and if I can share that with her, that would be great.
Yeah, sure, no worries. I'll be happy to.
Okay, thank you, Andrew.
Thank you.
Okay. Next I think is Jose.
Yes. Can you guys hear
Go
me?
ahead. Yep.
Yes.
We can see
Okay.
you.
Let me share my screen.
Sure.
Okay. Can you guys see my screen?
Yep.
Okay.
Perfect.
All righty. So my name is Jose Martinez. I'm gonna be presenting the audit for the generative audit of the CSU system. So give me a sec. Okay, so the agenda for this presentation is going to be the background, audit objectives, scope and methodology, audit program, rating agent, finding, and the conclusion. So the background of the CSU system is actually one of the largest public university networks in the US. There is currently 23 campuses according to the official site, and 7 off-campus centers, which educates about 450,000 students each year, and currently has about 63,000 faculty and staff. So the CSU system was created in the 1960 under the California Master Plan for Higher Education. And the main purpose of it is to create, it creates a welcoming and supportive environment for all members of its campus communities. So the audit objective is to evaluate governance, operational processes, compliance, and risk management associated with generative AI in the organization. For this specific audit, I actually assess or check the policies that are currently in place. And another thing is that the report, I will have the reports which will have the findings, controls, and an audit summary. So the scope of the methodology of this audit is the generative AI audit was conducted from February 11th through March 9, 2026. The audit focuses on evaluating AI policy, collecting standards, procedures, governance documents from the CSU policy website, and evaluating operation processes, compliance, and risk management associated with the use of generative AI. So some of the key risks, key things that I look into is like if there is a policy for misuse, privacy, or related to security. The program, the audit program that I used was the audit program for generative AI. So audit program is consists of governance, data integrity, security and access controls, ethical consideration, compliance with relevant laws, regulation, and the performance monitoring. The rating agent, I actually have for the findings, I have high, medium, low. The test control, I have no exception, exception untested. For the exception is not for the no exception is like that there is for this auditing, there is a policy that kind of addresses the specific control. If there for the exception part for this specific audit, currently there is no policy directly that applies to the specific control for the AI technology. Untested, for example, for this audit, I wasn't able to get interviews. So to interview security analysts or other engineers. So audit rating, so satisfactory means that everything is in place. There are policy for most of the control for all of the controls that are tested. Needs improvement. There are probably like some missing policies. Unsatisfactory means that maybe there are no policy or controls in place currently. So for governance, so the finding one, I test the test results. This one is an exception and it's high. So the control that I tested is that the organization maintains a formally documented AI strategy and governance framework that is reviewed and approved by the executive leadership on an annual basis. So there is on the policies, and I found that there is a specific committee, a system-wide generative AI advisory committee for that they review specific policies related to AI. But this is an exception because there is no current system-wide generative AI. There are guidelines, but there are no Gen AI policies currently. So that's one of the reasons I marked this as an exception. The second finding is for the same thing under governance and management of Gen AI. This one is not an no exception. The control that I tested is that generative AI committee shall review and approve all AI use cases prior to development and deployment. So this one is not it's not an exception, since there are currently security policies and different standards that for example, there are roles and responsibilities through specifically the CSU information security policies and standards under the Section 3. There are roles and responsibilities that basically that define the roles for each person, and the AI committee exists within the system that approves and suggests if there is going to be a new policy or anything like that. So it actually, I think it started in 2024. So this is not an exception. For finding 3, this is an exception and finding is high. The description control is that the organization should maintain, document, and approve policies covering the AI model lifecycle. So currently, what I found that the CSU doesn't have a system like wide policy, as I mentioned before, which addresses AI model development and AI monitoring, AI life cycle management, and risk management. So I would say this is a major gap. The next one is under integrity and usage. So this is not the test results. We're not exception. And finding is a medium, but the control description is that the organization maintains policies and standards governing ethical and AI development, including fairness, transparency, accountability, and responsible use. So the policies must be reviewed periodically, communicated in all AI development teams. Compliance with these policies must be monitored by the AI governance committee. So as I mentioned before, there is a committee, system-wide Gen AI advisory committee for the CSU system. So the purpose of their of this committee is to actually, as I mentioned before, is to update guidance and policy recommendation to reflect like the continuity of evolving AI landscape. So, the CSU privacy program states, I reviewed that specific document, that the data shouldn't be collected unless it's needed. So, it clearly establishes that any personal information shouldn't be transferred outside of the California State University unless it's transferred. It is compatible with disclosed purpose for which it was collected, basically. Okay, so data integrity and usage. So finding 5, test result is exception, finding is high. The control that I tested is that campuses must implement a document process governing data cleaning, processing and anonymization for any data uses in AI. So the CSU actually system, while there's a lack of document AI specific procedures for data cleaning, pre-processing and anonymization. The existing policies, like for example, the CSU information security standard require data classification, but I would say that's not enough. It's not explicitly applied to the AI training database. So I would say that's why it's an exception. So security and access control finding 6, the test results were exception. It's an exception. So finding is medium. The control that I tested is that our organization implements and maintains a document security access management framework and to protect the Gen AI model, and the deployment environment from unauthorized access, misuse, security vulnerabilities. So after reviewing the CSU information security policies and standards, that contains a set of criteria and evaluating if the campuses are meeting the control objectives of data and retention and disposition. So basically, the CSU doesn't have yet a formal document AI security and access management framework that fully meets the control. That's why the reason that it's an exception. So ethical considerations. So finding 7, test results, no exception. Finding at this one, I mislabeled it, so it should be medium. So the control is that I tested the organization actually maintains policies, standards governing AI development, including fairness, transparency, accountability, and responsible use. These policies actually must be reviewed periodically and communicated to AI. So this compliance, basically after reviewing the CSU information security policy and standards and the CPP appropriate use policy for information technology, I found out that they have no comprehensive policies addressing ethical issues directly to the AI development. They have actually just guidances, which it's a good start. So finding 8, so test results, no exception. Finding is medium. So the control description is that the organization maintains a compliance framework that ensures that all generative AI activities, including data collection, storage, monitoring, deployment, and generated output, adhere to applicable data privacy laws like intellectual property requirements and AI-specific regulation or industry standards. So for this one, it's not an exception because there are in the policy, the CSU under the CSU security policy and standards, they specifically on page 24, it states that each campus basically must develop and implement appropriate controls to secure level 1 data and level 2 data, which must ensure confidentiality, integrity, availability of the actual set, which is the information. So the one of the controls that actually I'm not sure, I wasn't able to see if this kind of control, it's a technical control that is if it's in place. So the DL data loss leakage technical control. So I'm not sure if they have that to kind of see what's to limit to see what's going into being input into the actual AI technology or what's being copy paste and all of that. So that's one of the recommendations for this. Okay, so model performance and validation. So it's no exception and finding is high. Control description continuous monitoring mechanisms are implemented to detect performance degradation. So with the we have reviewed as well the CSU information security and standards. It states that all campuses have to maintain ongoing monitoring, risk assessment, change controls, and documentation, basically. So specifically sections C, ISO domain 9, the access control, it gives us well the specific steps that or things that we have to implement about access control and information asset monitoring that campuses must actually implement appropriate. So I think this is the reason that it's not that it's not an exception. So the audit summary, it needs improvement due to those specific, the CSU system doesn't have a system-wide generative AI governance that I know of, which includes like governance structure, AI lifecycle controls. CSU should basically develop system-wide policies, and procedures governing the full life cycle of generative AI systems, including model development, testing, and monitoring. Monitoring, it's a big thing now. From experience, it's really it's not easy. So well, policies, a wide policy would be good for that specifically. So As I mentioned, the formal governance framework should be defining how CSU develops, deploys, evaluates, and monitor AI systems. Is a way that is ethical, transparent, aligned with the CSU security standards. As I mentioned before, DLL, which is a data loss leakage, it's a technical control that can be applied, if not already applied into the system, to protect level data level 1 and 2. So that way the security analysts, they know where the data are going, basically. And that concludes my presentation.
Great. Thank you so much, Jose. Interestingly, it's the same rating, the improvement. So I think you can all come to the same conclusion. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Professor.
Okay, Carlo?
Yes, let me share my screen.
Sure.
Okay, can you guys see?
Yep.
Okay, cool. So good afternoon. My name is Giancarlo Madrigal. I'm here to present the findings of the generative AI audit on the CSU system. So this audit evaluates how the largest four-year public university network in the nation is navigating a rapid integration of GenAI in its academic and operational infrastructure. So before we dive into the data, so I just want to give a little background. Obviously, there's a lot of overlap with what's said previously, but it's one of the it's actually the largest public university network in the country. The CSU system educates 450,000 students and employs nearly 63,000 faculty and staff. It's comprised of 23 campuses, and it offers over 4,000 degree programs. So it was created in 1960 with the mission to provide a supportive environment that elevates educational experience and prepares students for a technology-driven workforce. In the AI context, in February 2025, recently, the CSU actually launched a $17 million system-wide AI initiative to provide enterprise-level tools like ChatGPT EDU to all students and faculty. The audit objective here is we're going to evaluate the governance, operational processes, compliance, and risk management of the CSU system. As far as in context of generative AI. For my methodology, I've reviewed the system-wide rollout of enterprise tools like ChatGPT EDU. I also dived into campus-specific security standards and the CSU AI Commons framework. For my ratings legend today, it's going to be satisfactory. So all controls are documented and functioning effectively, or needs improvement. Controls exist, but there's significant gaps. So as far as governance, we looked at the proper oversight of GenAI implementation in the CSU system, and we were able to see that the CSU actually has established a system-wide GenAI advisory committee to align AI use with institutional goals. And what I found out was, while high-level oversight does exist and there is a committee, that's in charge of all that, there is an imbalance in the shared governance. So there really is no way for individual campuses to report like AI risks back to the chancellor's office or back to the advisory committee. So therefore, I'm rating it as needs improvement, with the recommendation that the CSU system formalizes a localized reporting structure for all 23 campuses to ensure a bottom-up feedback reaches the committee as stated before. So that's for governance. And on my next slide, I'm going to dive into data integrity. I will say, I'm sorry, the objective here is we want to assess the data used to train and validate AI models for accuracy and privacy. So I do want to give the CSU system credit because they are using sort of walled garden enterprise environment for ChatGPT, for example, ChatGPT EDU. So all the data that goes in there is not used to train public models, which is a great first step. So What we found out with this, there's actually a lack of documented AI specific procedures for data cleaning and anonymization before data sets are used for campus specific research and development projects. So I went ahead and said that this needs improvement, mainly because like I said, there's a lack of data cleaning and anonymization for this data, right? So the recommendation here is to develop standardized guidelines for data pre-processing and anonymization to ensure, the level 1 and level 2, which would be confidential and confidential data assets that are protected before the model is able to ingest them. So that's for data integrity and usage. Looking at security and access controls, the objective here is to protect AI models and associated data against unauthorized access. So in my controls or assessment, I found that, access is strictly controlled through the CampusNet ID authentication that we use across the CSU system, even when we log into Canvas, right? So that ensures that only authorized students and faculty can access the enterprise environment. So in that I found that while layered security controls or ISO domains are referenced, there is a risk of the state budget cuts, that will possibly reduce the IT workforce to maintain the real-time monitoring of AI audit logs. Otherwise, I mean, I would say this is pretty satisfactory. The recommendation really would just be to be able to protect IT staffing levels as much as possible to ensure continuous monitoring and incident response for AI-specific vulnerabilities. So now looking at ethical considerations and bias. So the objective here is to ensure that the organization addresses fairness and bias in Gen AI models. So the controls here assessment is that the ethical principles AI framework actually has been published to promote transparency and accountability. So what I found was that there's actually a digital divide in literacy. Students at under-resourced campuses show a lower engagement levels with AI tools than other campuses, right? So that creates kind of an ethical gap in workforce readiness, as not all campuses have the same resources. So because of that, I'm going to go ahead and say that this needs improvement. The recommendation here would be to implement some sort of AI equity grant program to provide more intensive literacy training for first generation and marginalized student populations in particular. So that'll ensure that they don't get left behind. And so that's for ethical considerations and bias. As far as compliance and laws, on the compliance front, the objective here is to ensure that compliance is met with data privacy laws and intellectual property rights. So what in the controls actually in assessment CSU contracts, the CSU contracts for enterprise AI, including like FERPA and CCPA compliance protections. So those are protect laws and policies that they do need to follow. So what I found was that the guidelines regarding the IP for AI generated content are currently kind of like fragmented. It's really confusing among faculty and students, as far as like work ownership, right? Because we know that a lot of students do use AI in their work and there's no thought of, behind their work. So I'm gonna say that this rating is satisfactory. Because like I said, we are in compliance with FERPA and CCPA. However, the recommendation would be to possibly standardize the IP policies across all 23 campuses to clearly define an ownership of AI-assisted research and creative works. So that's for compliance with laws. Moving on to the model performance and validation. The objective here is to evaluate the processes used to validate and improve AI performance, right? What I found is that the CSU monitors activation rates, over 140,000 users as a primary metric for initiative success. uh, in my findings, what I found that there's no really formal system-wide mechanisms for users to report model hallucinations or performance degradation back to the central AI comments. Um, so because of that, I'm going ahead and saying needs improvement. And with that being said, the recommendation for something like this would be to possibly establish a model feedback portal where users or students, faculty are able to uh, provide feedback in a portal where they can flag, inaccuracies, which would allow the CSU to monitor model drift and adjust training guidelines accordingly. Uh, to make sure that the AI is not hallucinating or making stuff up, right? So that's that. And then in conclusion, I'm I'm gonna go ahead and say, the overall rating would be satisfactory with observations. The CSU has successfully launched secure enterprise infrastructure, but there are, critical gaps that still remain but particularly in shared governance, data pre-processing, and the equity of access, right? So moving forward, I mean, next steps most likely would probably be development of an inaccuracy feedback loop, yeah, and the deployment of technical data loss protection controls. Um, and yeah, again, like I said, I'm rating this satisfactory with observations. If we do meet those little gaps, then it would be considered satisfactory. But I'm saying satisfactory with observations because I think it is pretty up to date. And again, it is a new AI is a new academic resource, introduced in the past few years. So there's still a lot to be done with it. But yeah, that's my presentation.
Great. Thank you so much, Carlo. So normally we have three rating. One is satisfactory. Satisfactory meaning that most of the controls are in place. They're very, very minor, minimal type of a gap in place. Need improvement is what you have. It's like overall control are in place, but they're missing some. So like you say, observation, and some students say need improvement. They identify some exception, but overall control objective are still meeting. Unsatisfactory meaning that most of the key control are missing. So those are unsat. So thank you so much, Carlo.
No, thank you.
Okay, the next one is Anthony.
Yep. Perfect. Let me share.
Mhm.
Let me know if you can hear the sound.
No, not yet.
I don't hear sound if.
Mm.
Anthony, we cannot hear.
Oh, you guys can't?
Mm-mm.
Oh, shoot. Oh, I'm sorry. Let me see. Uh,
Then when you share, you have to select something. So you probably need to unshare, stop sharing, and then we share again. That's what I
okay,
what
I'll
I
see.
see. Mm-hmm.
Here. I'm sorry. Can the next person go while I try to figure this
Sure,
out?
sure. No, don't
Sorry
worry.
about this.
Uh, uh, Adara.
Yep, I can go.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
I will get my presentation set up and then Sorry about that, guys. My monitors are not playing nice right now. Okay. Can everyone see my screen okay?
Yep.
All right, perfect. So I will go ahead and get started. Good evening. My name's Adara, and this is my presentation for the Generative AI Audit of the California State University System. So for some background, the California State University System, also known as the CSU, is a public higher education system with 23 campuses. It serves approximately 460,000 students and is employing over 63,000 staff and faculty. The system is set up so that all campuses fall under system-wide governance under the Chancellor's Office, also known as the CO. But there's also a lot of campus-level autonomy, meaning that each campus uses product licenses and resources from the CO, but they can and they also do have a lot of different systems and tools with AI included. So the overall audit objective was to evaluate the governance, operational processes, compliance, and risk management associated with the use of Gen AI technologies within the CSU. Specifically, we were looking at governance and oversight, data integrity and usage, security and access controls, ethical considerations and bias, compliance, and model performance and validation. So the scope of this audit covers Gen AI tools implemented and approved by the CSU Chancellor's Office before the review period, since the CSU is primarily using third-party Gen AI tools rather than creating their own. These tools include enterprise-level platforms and AI-enabled features within existing applications. So this includes things like ChatGPT EDU, our favorite one, the Zoom AI Companion, Microsoft Copilot, and more. I did modify the generative AI audit program to, at least what I hope was, the best fit for the unique structure of the CSU. The methodology I followed was reviewing AI policies, procedures, and standards, and guidelines, because within the CSU, these are not always treated the same way, and evaluating the security and data classification standards, as well as a review of internal documentation available to me as a CSU employee. But shh. So the ratings legend I used was to define how the ratings are. So for controls testing, we have no exception, exception noted, and untested, sorry. For the findings, we have high, medium, and low. And for the audit rating, we have satisfactory, needs improvement, and unsatisfactory. So for the sake of time, I'm going to cover one finding for each objective and then give an overall audit summary at the end based on all these. So the first finding we have is under governance and oversight under system-wide oversight is a sub-process area. We want to ensure that there is proper oversight of Gen AI implementation and that centralized AI governance exists. So I reviewed documented policies and guidelines for the AI deployment and monitoring, and I noted an exception here. The finding was that the CSU has established Gen AI guidelines, but a formally approved system-wide policy has not yet been implemented. Because remember, these are not always treated the same way. So having a policy is very important, but the absence of the policy can result in inconsistent application of controls, unclear accountability across campuses. And so that's why I gave it needs improvement, because it's almost there, but not quite. So for data integrity and usage, we want to ensure that data submitted to Gen AI tools is protected and not used for unauthorized purposes, including model training. No exception was noted here. I reviewed the documentation and I talked to campus information security officer, and I was able to confirm that there are contractual safeguards prohibiting vendors from using data input for model training. So this reduces the risk of unauthorized secondary data usage and supports compliance with CSU data protection standards. So this one I rated as satisfactory. For security and access controls, the sub-process area here was authentication. And we want to ensure that access to Gen AI platforms is restricted to authorized users. So no exception noted here. I reviewed the documentation confirming that access is integrated through campus single sign-on and enforced through multi-factor authentication. There was also a lot of work on the back end, I can tell you, about going into who gets what and making sure it went to the so all the right groups on campus, right? And so the finding description, integration across campus SSO systems reduces risk of unauthorized access, so that is a satisfactory finding. Ethical considerations and bias. So the sub-process area here is ethical guidance. This is one where I kind of modified it a little bit to fit the educational context, right? Because we're not the same as a regular enterprise. You can't compare us to a big Fortune 500 company. But we want to ensure that Gen AI usage aligns with system-wide ethical policies and includes considerations of fairness, bias, academic integrity, and transparency. So I did note an exception here because there is AI guidance, responsible use materials, and I reviewed select campus materials from Sac State, East Bay, and Bakersfield. But it's all advisory, and I feel like this should be included in system-wide policies. This is something I feel like is important enough that should be done at the system-wide level, not just per campus. It should be done at both, but so having campuses have is important, but it should be at the system-wide level too, with that overarching system-wide policy. So I did rate that as needs improvement. For compliance, the sub-process area here is data protection. We want to ensure that Gen AI usage complies with the information security responsible use policy and campus data privacy requirements. So I noted an exception here because the AI guidance and data classification standards prohibit level 1 and 2 data going into unauthorized AI tools. However, there's no formal enforcement, there's no monitoring, and there's no technical controls at the system-wide level to ensure that compliance. When they said they can't track what you put into ChatGPT, they really meant that. They can track who uses it, but they can't say that, I put in what is compliance, right? They can't tell that I asked ChatGPT for the menu or whatever. They don't know. They just know that I'm using it. So reliance on user adherence is done at the campus level. So I think that this at the system-wide level, we do need tools to prevent and detect private information from going in there. So that led me to a rating of needs improvement. And then we have model performance and validation. So we want to make sure that models are validated, right? And they're validated for accuracy and reliability. However, we're currently relying on vendors to provide assurances that their models are reliable, and we're just putting in the guidelines, hey, these models can hallucinate, do your homework. So I felt like this needs improvement because I feel like we need a better way to ensure that these are not totally making things up, that they are accurate and reliable, especially when it comes to research purposes, which is big in an academic institution. So in conclusion, my overall audit report rating is needs improvement. My main recommendations, I should say my overarching recommendations would be to review and update documentation for system-wide policies on generative AI. Guidelines are great, but we need policies. And to implement a system-wide DLP tool. Like I said, we're relying on user adherence to the guidelines, but we really need something to enforce that control. And lastly, oversight of model performance and bias is relying on vendor validation. I think it'd be really great if we did that at the system-wide level as well. Thank you.
Oh, this is very nice. You summarized the finding into like 3 themes. So a lot of time definitely can do that. One minor thing, if you go back to your testing, like individual domain testing, yeah, so any one of them is fine. So a lot of time when we do testing, we don't do the rating. We should say that testing, are there any exception noted or no exception noted? So the rating, we only rate the overall audit. We don't rate individual control. So individual control, when we do the control testing, is either exception noted, when you find something, exception, or no exception noted. Okay, it's a minor thing. But
Understood.
thank you. Great job.
Thank you.
Mhm. So, Anthony, you want to go next or you want us to continue?
Yes, please. I believe I figured it out.
Okay, go for it.
Let me know if you guys can hear this one. Hello, everyone. My name is Anthony Chico,
Yeah.
and today I'll be presenting my IT audit on the governance, security, compliance, ethical use, and monitoring of generative AI within the Cal State University system. As artificial intelligence becomes more integrated into higher education, institutions must ensure that proper oversight, data protection, legal compliance, and responsible implementation practices are in place. AI introduces significant opportunities, but also introduces significant risks, including data misuse, ethical concerns, regulatory violations, and operational weaknesses. The purpose of this audit was to evaluate whether CSU has implemented generative AI in a structured, secure, and policy-aligned manner that mitigates those risks. We'll move over to the next slide. There we go. Audit objective. The primary objective of this audit was to assess whether CSU's generative AI governance frameworks and determine whether they have appropriately controls exist in the 6 critical areas. These areas are governance oversight, data integrity, confidentiality, security access controls, ethical AI use, compliance with laws, performance monitoring, and continuous improvement. The goal was not simply to confirm that policies exist, but to evaluate whether those policies align with the best practices and provide meaningful protection against those risks. This audit follows ISACA's structured methodology, identified the scope, identified controls, reviewed official CSU documentation and guidelines, and documented all findings and my conclusions. Move over to slide 3, governance and oversight. The first area evaluated was governance. The control objective here was to ensure that formal governance structures exist and to oversee generative AI implementation. Through review of CSU documentation, I confirmed that system-wide generative AI advisory committee has been established. This committee provides system-wide oversight and guidance for AI adoption across the CSU campuses. Leadership involvement is documented, and AI implementation is aligned with CSU's institutional mission and strategic goals. This indicates that AI usage is not just deployed randomly and without direction. It's guided and at a system level. From an audit perspective, governance is critical because it establishes accountability, defines responsibilities, and ensures structured decision-making. The conclusion was a formal governance structure exists and demonstrates strong leadership oversight and institutional commitment. So the finding was high, my rating was satisfactory. My recommendation is to continue refining governance processes as AI and regulatory expectations evolve. Move to the next slide, data integrity and confidentiality. The second area evaluated was, again, data integrity and confidentiality. The objective here was to ensure that generative AI usage aligns with the CIA triad, confidentiality, integrity, and availability. The CSU Safe and Responsible Use Guidelines clearly prohibit the entry of confidential or sensitive data in publicly available AI tools. These general guidelines emphasize responsible data handling and the protection of institutional and personal information. This is particularly important because AI systems often rely on data input, and proper handling of sensitive information could lead to regulatory violations and reputational damage. Additionally, CSU documentation outlines expectations around the responsible data stewardship and validation processes, reinforcing the importance of data integrity. My conclusion here was CSU has documented data protection and confidentiality standards within AI guidelines, demonstrating strong alignments with security and best practices. Findings were high again, and my ratings were satisfactory. My recommendations here are maintain current safeguards and periodic review controls. Next slide. This is going to be security and access controls. This is the third area evaluated, and the objective here was to ensure that generative AI systems require proper authentication and authorization before use. My testing confirmed that CSU requires proper authentication prior to accessing AI systems. Policies indicate that access is restricted and subject to authorization requirements. This reduces the risk of unauthorized access, misuse, and potential data exposures. From a risk management perspective, access controls is one of the most fundamental safeguards to any IT system. My conclusions were authentication, authorization, controls are documented and being enforced, providing strong protection against unauthorized access and misuse. Findings were high, my ratings were satisfactory. Move to ethical AI use. This is the fourth area being evaluated, and the objective here was to determine whether CSU has clearly documented expectations regarding responsible AI use, fairness, and accountability. CSU has published ethical AI guidelines and expectations for proper use, academic integrity, transparency, and oversight. The documentation here emphasizes accountability, traceability, and responsible AI integration in academic environments. Ethical governance is especially important because AI and concerns around bias, misinformation, and misuse in academic settings. My conclusions here were ethical AI standards are clearly documented and strongly aligned in institutional values and responsible AI practices. So my findings were high, my ratings were satisfactory. This is compliance with laws. This is the fifth area being assessed, and the objective here was to ensure AI usage complies with applicable state and federal laws, including privacy and IP regulations. The CSU documentation clearly states that AI and IT usage must comply with all applicable legal and regulatory compliance. There are documented disciplinary procedures in place to address any misuse or violations. This demonstrates institutional awareness of legal obligations and provides reinforcement and enforcement mechanisms. Conclusions here were legal compliance expectations are clearly documented and supported by enforcement processes, demonstrating strong regulatory awareness. Findings here were high, my ratings were satisfactory. This is going to be the final area evaluated. This is performance monitoring and continuous improvement. The objective here was to ensure that generative AI systems are being monitored and continuously improved over time. The CSU Generative AI Committee report references ongoing evaluation, performance oversights, and monitoring processes. Monitoring is essential because AI systems evolve and risks can change as technology advances. The documentation indicates that CSU recognizes the need for structured oversight and continual review. My conclusions here were the monitoring and evaluation practices were documented and active, reflecting strong oversight and commitment to continuous improvement. Findings were high, my ratings were satisfactory. Now for the overall findings. Across the 6 audit findings, they were highly rated and all controls were rated satisfactory. CSU demonstrates a structured governance framework, strong data protection standards, authentication access controls, ethical AI guidance, compliance with legal requirements, and ongoing monitoring and oversight. This indicates that CSU has implemented generative AI in a controlled and policy-aligned manner. In conclusion, the CSU system has incorporated generative AI in a structured and responsible way. There's clear governance, documentation, ethical guidance, compliance oversight, and monitoring practices are in place. However, AI technology rapidly evolves. Therefore, conducting monitoring, periodic policy updates, and ongoing leadership oversight is essential to maintain security, compliance, and ethical standards moving forward. I thank you for your time, and I welcome any questions.
Okay, so thank you, Anthony. I think same thing, when we do the control testing, it's not rating, it's the testing result. So what the testing result, if there's no exception, you just say no exception noted. If there's exception noted, you just say exception noted. We only do rating for the overall audit. We don't do rating when we do performing the control testing. So it should change the rating to control testing result, and then satisfactory or the improvement change though to say no exception noted or exception noted. But overall it's good. Thank you. Anybody have question for Anthony?
Not a question for Anthony, but you wanted the rating for the control to be something rather control result.
The rating. So I don't know. I think Adara, if you don't mind share your presentation again, or Andrew. I mean Anthony. Either one of you, if you can share your presentation again, I show you.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I have mine open. I can
Okay.
There we go.
Perfect.
Thank you, Adara.
No problem.
Okay, so here, let's for example, compliance. Compliance, one of the domain, right? And then here is the control description on the top and how we test the control and finding description, and she found that exception. So instead of say rating, this is actually control testing result, right? She did the testing, and instead of saying improvement issue, we do say exception noted, because this is a testing of this control. Does that make sense?
It does, yeah. Thank you
Okay.
for going back over that, and thank you, Adara, for sharing.
Yeah, no worry. Thank you.
No problem.
Okay, and the next one will be Wesley. Wesley, are you there? Go for it.
Hi, my name is Wesley. This presentation summarizes the results of an audit evaluating the governance of generative AI at Cal Poly Pomona. The objective of the audit was to assess whether the university's Gen AI guidelines provide adequate controls for managing risk related to AI technologies, including governance, security, compliance, and ethical considerations. The purpose of this audit was to determine whether Cal Poly Pomona's generative AI guidelines establish sufficient controls to manage the risk associated with the use of Gen AI technologies. The audit focused on 6 key risk areas: governance oversight, data protection, security controls, ethical AI usage, regulatory compliance, and monitoring of AI system performance. The scope of this audit included reviewing the Cal Poly Pomona Generative AI guidelines and evaluating whether appropriate controls exist across 6 domains. These domains include governance and management, data integrity and usage, security and access controls, ethical considerations and bias mitigation, compliance with laws and regulations, and model performance monitoring. Audit testing procedures were documented through detailed work papers to assess whether controls were defined and effectively implemented. The audit methodology involved reviewing the Gen AI guidelines and mapping policy statements to the relevant control objectives. Testing included evaluating whether controls were clearly documented, assessing whether the controls address known AI risks, and identifying gaps where policies or procedures were missing. Evidence reviewed during the audit included the CPP Generative AI Guidelines, University Data Classification Standards, and other institutional policy documentation. The audit identified several strengths within the current Gen AI guidelines. The university clearly prohibits the use of confidential Level 1 and Level 2 data within public AI tools. The guidelines also recognize ethical risks and the potential for biased AI outputs. In addition, users are instructed to verify AI-generated outputs before relying on them, and the policy emphasizes compliance with privacy laws such as FERPA and HIPAA. The guidelines also recommend using enterprise AI platforms when possible, which can provide stronger data protection controls. These measures provide a foundation for responsible AI use at the university. The first finding relates to governance oversight and is classified as a medium risk. The generative AI guidelines provide general governance guidance, but they do not define specific oversight roles, governance committees, or accountability structures responsible for managing AI risks. Without a formal governance framework, responsibility for AI oversight might be unclear, which could result in inconsistent management of AI technologies across departments. And to address this issue, the university should establish a formal AI governance structure that defines oversight responsibilities and includes a governance committee responsible for managing AI-related risk. The second finding is also rated as a medium risk and relates to data governance. The guidelines restrict the use of confidential data in AI systems. However, they do not define procedures for validating the quality of data used with AI systems or for anonymizing data before it is submitted to AI tools. This creates a risk that sensitive institutional information could be improperly handled or exposed. And to improve data governance, the university should implement formal procedures for anonymizing data used in AI systems, validating training data quality, and documenting data sets used in AI applications. The third finding represents the highest risk identified in this audit and is classified as a high risk. While the policy recommends the use of enterprise AI platforms, it does not define security controls such as authentication requirements, access management, or monitoring of AI activity. Without these controls, unauthorized access or misuse of AI tools could occur, and the university may have limited visibility into how AI systems are being used. To mitigate this risk, the university should implement role-based access controls, authentication requirements, and monitoring systems to track AI system activity. The fourth finding is classified as a low risk and relates to ethical AI usage. The guidelines acknowledge that AI outputs may contain bias or inaccuracies and instruct users to review outputs before using them. However, the policy does not define formal procedures for testing AI systems for bias or evaluating fairness. And to strengthen ethical AI governance, the university should implement structured bias testing procedures and fairness evaluation metrics for AI systems. The fifth finding is also rated as a low risk. The Gen AI guidelines acknowledge that AI-generated content may raise copyright or intellectual property concerns, but they do not define policies governing ownership or acceptable use of AI-generated materials. This could create potential legal risk or disputes regarding the ownership of AI-generated content. The university should establish clear policies addressing copyright compliance and ownership of AI-generated content. The sixth finding is classified as a medium risk and relates to monitoring AI system performance. The guidelines requires users to review AI-generated outputs. However, they do not define procedures for monitoring model performance, detecting model drift, or retraining models when performance declines. Without these controls, AI outputs may become inaccurate or unreliable over time. The university should implement performance monitoring metrics and procedures for detecting model drift and conducting periodic validation of AI systems. The overall audit rating for the Generative AI Governance Framework at Cal Poly Pomona is needs improvement. The university has established a foundational policy framework through its Gen AI guidelines. The policy addresses several important areas such as ethical awareness, restrictions on confidential data usage, and expectations for compliance with privacy regulations. However, the audit identified several operational control gaps. These include the absence of a defined AI governance structure, limited data governance procedures, insufficient security controls for AI systems, and the lack of formal monitoring for AI model performance. The audit identified 1 high-risk finding, 3 medium risk findings, and 2 low-risk findings. And because several important operational controls are not fully defined, the overall control environment requires improvement to effectively manage the risks associated with generative AI technologies. This slide shows the risk level legend used to classify individual findings during the audit. The legend explains how findings were categorized as high, medium, or low risk. This slide shows the audit rating legend used in this assessment. The legend defines the criteria used to determine the overall audit rating categories, such as satisfactory, needs improvement, and unsatisfactory. And this concludes my presentation.
Great. Thank you so much, Wesley. Anybody have question for Wesley? Terrific. Thank you. Okay. Uh, Wayne Dan. Perfect.
Hi everyone, my name is Winnie and I'll be presenting my findings of my generative AI audit on Cal Poly Pomona using the program from Canvas. This audit was conducted to evaluate the governance, security, and responsible use of generative AI tools at Cal Poly Pomona. The objective of the audit was to assess whether existing controls and guidelines effectively support the secure and ethical use of AI tools within the university environment. The scope of the audit included several key areas such as AI governance, data privacy, security controls, and compliance with university policies. To perform the audit, I reviewed the Cal Poly Pomona Generative AI Guidelines and evaluated documented policies and controls to determine whether they support responsible and secure AI usage across the university using the program from Canvas. To classify my findings, I used the following ratings legend. For controls testing, I classified controls as either no exception, meaning they were effective, or exception noted where I saw any weaknesses. For findings severity, findings were rated as high, medium, or low, depending on the potential impact on operations, security, and compliance. The overall audit rating is the final rating that reflects the overall assessment of the generative AI governance, security, and responsible use controls as either satisfactory, needs improvement, or unsatisfactory. My first finding is related to data protection and privacy when using generative AI tools. I found no exception noted since Cal Poly Pomona already has guidelines in place that prohibit users from entering sensitive information such as personal data, student records, or other confidential university information into generative AI tools. These guidelines help reduce the risk of exposing sensitive data and promote responsible use of AI technologies. However, I observed that additional safeguards could further reduce the risk of accidental data exposure. While policies provide guidance to users, they rely heavily on individuals following the rules correctly. For example, users may unintentionally submit sensitive information when interacting with AI systems, especially when using AI tools for tasks like summarizing documents or generating reports. And once information is entered into some AI platforms, it may be stored or processed externally, which could increase the risk of unauthorized disclosure or misuse of information data. I rated this finding as medium severity because although policies and guidelines are already in place, the potential impact of exposing sensitive university data could be significant if those safeguards are not consistently followed. Implementing additional protections such as automated warnings or technical safeguards could further strengthen data protection. My second finding is related to training and awareness for the responsible use of generative AI tools. I found no exception noted because Cal Poly Pomona already provides general guidance regarding the appropriate and responsible use of AI technologies through its generative AI guidelines. These guidelines outline expectations for protecting sensitive information and using AI tools in an ethical and responsible manner. However, I observed that additional training opportunities could further improve user understanding of the risks and limitations associated with generative AI systems. Because these technologies are evolving rapidly, many users may not fully understand issues such as inaccurate AI outputs, potential bias in generated content, or the risks of unintentionally sharing sensitive information. For example, training sessions or awareness programs could include topics such as data privacy risk, ethical AI use, identifying biased or misleading AI-generated responses, and best practices for verifying AI-generated content before using it for academic or administrative purposes. I rated this finding as low severity since the university already provides guidance and policies for responsible AI use. However, expanding training and awareness would help ensure that faculty, staff, and students use these tools more safely and effectively. My last finding relates to AI governance and oversight within the university. I found no exception noted because Cal Poly Pomona has already established generative AI guidelines that outline responsible use and provide general oversight responsibilities for AI technologies used across the university. These guidelines help ensure that users understand the risks associated with AI tools and follow university policies when using them. However, I observed that a dedicated governance structure or committee specifically responsible for overseeing AI implementation and monitoring AI-related risks is not clearly defined. As AI technologies continue to develop and become more widely used in academic and administrative environments, having a formal governance group could help ensure consistent oversight. For example, an AI governance committee could be responsible for reviewing new AI tools, monitoring compliance with policies, addressing ethical concerns such as bias or misuse, and updating guidelines as technology evolves. I rate this finding as low severity since governance guidance already exists and the university has taken steps to address responsible AI use. However, establishing a more formal oversight structure could further improve monitoring, accountability, and long-term risk management. So for my recommendation summary for the findings, first, I recommend strengthening data protection controls by implementing safeguards or warnings that help prevent users from submitting sensitive information into Gen AI tools. Second, I recommend expanding training and awareness programs so faculty, staff, and students better understand responsible AI use, including privacy risks and the limitations of AI-generated content. And finally, I recommend establishing a more formal AI governance structure to oversee AI use across the university, monitor risks, and ensure policies are consistently followed. And together, these improvements would help Cal Poly Pomona strengthen the responsible and secure use of generative AI technologies. In conclusion, the Generative AI Audit revealed that Cal Poly Pomona has established guidelines that support responsible and secure use of generative AI technologies. However, the audit identified several areas where controls and oversight could be strengthened, particularly related to data protection safeguards, user training, and formal AI governance oversight. While the existing guidelines provide a foundation for responsible AI use, improvements are needed to further reduce potential risks associated with sensitive data exposure, inconsistent AI usage practices, and evolving AI governance requirements. Overall, I rated the audit results as needs improvement because while the university has established guidelines for generative AI use, there are several areas where controls could be strengthened, including data protection safeguards, user training, and formal governance oversight. And that concludes my presentation.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Rainey. Anybody have questions for Rainey? Terrific. Thank you so much. Great job. Knee improvement too. Similar theme. Thanks. Joshua?
Do you mean me, Professor?
Yes.
Prahlad?
Yeah.
I
Yes.
I wasn't able to finish my presentation on time. I'm really sorry about that. Would it be possible to reschedule to another date?
Okay, sure. No worry. I will just mark you for the March 25th then. We have quite a few people on that week, but okay, no worry.
Okay, thank you, Professor.
Mustafa, are you there? I know you tell me you might not be able to make it because work. Okay, no worry. We put him down to next week too then. Any student that have their presentation ready, they would like to do it this week to get it out of the way? No? Then let me see, we have quite a few next week. I mean, March 25th. Again, no class next week, but March 25th. Let me see how many we have. Oh my God. We have 14. So I think that March 25th, we have to make sure that everybody on time, not going too long. Okay, no worry. I think it should work. Any question anybody have? Any question on the group project? Is it getting, coming along? So if there's no questions, you guys feel free to drop off. I will stay for a couple more minutes in case anybody have any question, either the individual audit project or the group audit project. Okay, good night.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Professor.
Professor.
Have a good night.
Good night.
Well, Professor, I just wanted to confirm, for our presentations today, do we submit the deck or is there anything we have to submit on our end?
You can wait until the April 8th and submit all of them together. But Anthony, the other Anthony Frederick, the first one
Frederick?
who present. Yeah. I say that I don't know if you mind to share your presentation with Carol. I think it's very beneficial. And everybody did very good job tonight. Just yours is the first one, so
No worries, Professor. Let me actually render it. I'll make it into a smaller file and I'll share it with you.
okay, perfect.
Oh, no problem.
And
Right,
then I
have a good
send
night.
it to her and I CC you on it, okay?
Sounds good. Thank you.
Awesome, thank you.
Yeah, bye.
Good night.
Actually, Professor, I had a question regarding the ratings that you were discussing, how the control rating should be exception noted, no exceptions, and then is there another criteria? It was
It's the
There was
control
two.
testing. Sorry, it's the
Yes.
control testing. So remember one class I kind of went through one of the SOC report with you guys. I share I think like AWS or Microsoft. So as you can see that when they do the control testing, they will say here's the control objective. Here are the control to fulfill that control objective. And for each of those control, here are the procedure that they perform to test the control effectiveness. So when they find exception, there was a exception noted. So it's not the rating.
Oh,
It's not.
yeah, I get it. Like if there was something that they found, so they're noting it for
Yes.
their comments.
Yes.
And I did notice that some students put like like a risk level, high, medium, low. Um, is that something more just as a preference, or what do you prefer in terms of having aside from the control rating as well as the overall audit rating? Is that something that you wanted, like the high, medium, low?
Yeah. So control, we don't rate control. We only say control is operating effectively, or if control is exception noted or no exception noted. But from the risk rating perspective, actually it's good. Risk rating is similar as finding when they say high, medium, low. So the risk rating is looking at from the impact and the likelihood. So a lot of time you want to focus more on the higher risk control, right? So if most of the high risk control is no exception noted, then your overall audit rating probably going to be satisfactory. So I think the risk rating is good. Some students say it as finding, or some people use it as risk rating. Either way, it's a risk rating or of that particular control.
Oh, okay. I get it. I get it. So you had the control rating, meaning that there was something that they found, and then the risk rating is like whatever they found, whether it was like really severe or whether it was not very severe, and then the overall audit gets the unsatisfactory and needs improvement.
Yeah,
Totally
most
get
of the time, most of the time it's the risk rating. Risk rating normally looking at so all the risk rating right now we're looking at it is more from an inherent risk perspective. So what's the risk of not having this control?
it.
Control normally is were there any exception noted? There's no like control rating per se. It's a risk rating.
Oh, I see.
Mm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sounds good. Thank you. I
Okay, good
will
night.
see you in 2 weeks.
That's right. Not next week, and the week after.
Sounds good. Good night.
Good night.